In the midst of a crippling drought in the country, we travel to the Eastern Cape, where farmers are running out of options. Even worse hit are some emerging farmers whose mainly unproductive government-leased farms have collapsed due to lack of capacity.
The cows are not getting enough milk because the mother is not giving milk. So 3 of my animals died because of that, and the calf also dies.
Other farmers are also counting the cost of the prolonged drought in the Karoo, the backbone of the country's sheep farming industry.
You've got 2 options. Either you can let your animals die, or like what I like to do is still try and feed the animals, but it's a huge burden on our cash flow.
Rivers have run dry, causing widespread devastation as thousands of fish lie rotting in the Nqweba Dam outside Graaff Reinet, the main water supply to town.
We've got 30 borers running there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they cannot produce enough water.
Government has pledged millions of rand in drought relief to assist those affected. The money is yet to arrive, and farmers say for them it's too late, as the devastation has already taken hold. Behind me is the farm Graaff. It's a few kilometers away from Graaff Reinet. It was bought a few years back as part of the government's willing seller, willing buyer program for 750,000 rand. This farm has been severely affected by drought. 69-year-old Zola Hanabe became the first black mayor of Graaff Reinet. A former school principal, he says the drought worsens the already compromised business environment on the farm.
We have 4 farmers who have been allocated to be leasing this farm, but in essence, we are about 6 farmers who are farming here together. And farming together doesn't work out because we are all different, and we farm in different manners.
Mr. Hanabe is a beneficiary of the state-leased land reform program. But since taking over the farm, it hasn't been productive, but has instead dilapidated. Now, with the drought, the farm has nothing saved for this disaster, as it went through several changes over the years.
They are dying because of drought. If you look at the fields, if you look at the water systems, because there is no borehole here, not borehole, a windmill here. The boreholes are there, but the windmills are not there, or the pumps are not there to take out the water from underground. And we lease such type of a farm.
According to reports, Graaff is one of 265 state-owned farms bought at a cost of 1.4 billion rand in the province. And 25 years into democracy, only 26 of these farms are viable. Another beneficiary on the farm, Quest Adams, says because it's not their farm, they don't repair broken property.
'n projek wat 'n failure was. Die groot probleem is dat ons manne sit te veel manne op grond. En as jy nie eienskap het nie, dan gaan jy nie omgee nie. Maar as ek weet dis my grond, dan gaan ek toesien dat dinge reg gedoen word, want die geld wat ek uitgee, gaan ek weer terugkry met die boerdery.
Overgrazing has become another huge problem. It leads to soil erosion, with the land unable to replenish the natural vegetation that the cattle feed on. With the drought, it's become worse. The farm resembles an animal graveyard, with carcasses strewn all over the place.
I've lost close between 90,000 to 100,000 if I took them to the auction. At least that is the number that the amount that I would gain.
Some cattle, desperate to get to a small pool of water in the river, were impaled in the broken fencing. It's a desperate situation. Calves struggle to feed from their mothers, who cannot produce enough milk, while some cattle die, too weak even to give birth.
I saw this cow lying here with the hooves of the calf protruding at the back. And unfortunately, it was already weak for me to try and assist it, and I'm not that skilled in assisting animals to give birth.
Mr. Anabe says they recently received water tanks from the municipality, but they remain empty. The cattle have become severely dehydrated. Gift of the Givers says the situation is dire, and without government assistance, more animals will die and farmers will go under, affecting the economy.
We're appealing to the agricultural ministry to sit with us, come see what's happening on the ground. The people, the farmers are suffering, especially when it comes, besides the feed, the medical and the veterinary work from the agricultural department. They are needed here more than any place else, because the farmers are suffering, your commercial farmers are suffering. If they lose everything, they will be on the streets begging for help.
Up the road at another farm, the animals haven't eaten in weeks. The distress levels of these pigs is immensely high. Torrents of waste line the outside. The farmer says he has nothing to feed them. Water is even a bigger problem.
Hoeveel diere het gevrek op hierdie plaas?
Daar gaan ek nou nie kan sê nie, maar is 'n hele paar. Is nie bietjie nie, is 'n hele paar. Wat al op die plaas doodgegaan het.
So as niemand julle help, gaan baie meer diere vrek?
Nee, dan is dit klaar met ons. Daar help dit, jy kan nou maar wat maak. Ek sal sommer wegloop as hulle sien nie.
In Graaff Reinet, we interviewed the Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform through Skype. We wanted to know who is responsible to maintain and repair broken infrastructure on state-owned farms.
The fact that government bought farms for them, there's an expectation from government that they then would be able to run maintenance of the farms, such that when the lease agreement comes to an end, when the farms are given to other people or it is extended, at least the farms are found in a better condition that was given to the farmers.
We asked Mr. Anabe if he could take us to the farmhouse. At first, he was hesitant, but then agreed. We were shocked to see a dilapidated farmhouse, vandalized outer buildings, and farm vehicles stripped bare.
If you look at the farm where the animals are being farmed, if you look at the farmhouse, everything is collapsed.
Everything is dilapidated, yes.
Why?
Well, it's because there is no care on the farm itself.
Is it a question of mismanagement?
It's a question of mismanagement. Mismanagement comes in the effect that if you don't check, if you don't come and renovate, if you don't come and make sure that those things that are broken are being repaired, it's a constant. That's something which must constantly happen.
Who should be held accountable?
Well, it will be both the municipality as management and the farmers who are farming here.
Now, the drought has proven to be their ultimate test. It's a test from which some of them will never recover. South Africa's land reform dream is facing another setback. The Blowkrans River on the farm Dorsfontein outside Graaff Reinet is the heart of Hendrik Wolfaart's farming operation. When it's flowing, it gives life to the fields, animals and farming communities.
We can irrigate out of this river, and I remember as a kid playing here, I mean, as far as you can see was only water. But for the last 3 years it hasn't flown once. So it's some of my neighboring farmers which have been in this area for 70 years tells me that it's the driest the river has been in their lifetime. And because there's no water, we cannot irrigate out of it, which means that we've got even less feed now than ever before.
Hendrik, an engineer by trade, comes from a long line of sheep farmers. He took over the family farm 16 years ago. He says because of the drought, he now has to hand feed his animals. Otherwise, they will die.
It's had a huge impact on all of us, all our farmers. I think specifically on our cash flow, because you've got two options. Either you can let your animals die, or like what I like to do is still try and feed the animals. But it's a huge burden on our cash flow to continue feeding all the animals. I mean, at this moment, I feed every single animal on this farm.
He says he survives on bank loans, and at the rate at which things are going, he's not sure if he'll make it past December. This is when he will again have to approach his bank manager for more money to buy animal feed. The drought has affected his output. He also gets paid less for his meat.
On this farm we run about 1,500 ewes, and in a normal year we'll buy maybe 1 bag of feed for the animals. In droughts like this we buy 3 bags per animal, so that's, instead of spending 200 Rand on an animal per year, we spend about 600 Rand just to get the lambs market ready. And on top of that, the meat price has come down from 85 Rand a kilo slaughtered weight to about 65 Rand a kilo.
Meanwhile, the government has pledged millions of rand in drought relief to assist Eastern Cape farmers. But 3 years into the worst drought that has crippled the province's farming sector, there's still no sign of the money.
We have 394 million. We have not yet divided money into commercial as well as sustenance farmers. But what we are actually doing now is to further understand exactly the crisis the province is facing.
Isn't it a little too late? This money should have been released long ago.
Look, with government, there are processes that we've got to go through.
With the river having dried out, Hendrik is now completely dependent on boreholes to water his animals and irrigate his lucerne. But the water table is dropping rapidly, with the pipes running empty.
In a normal year, if the wind is blowing this strongly, the water will be flowing, full pipe will be full of water, but now it's only trickling, and that's because the water table has dropped, so there's not enough water to pump up to the dam.
Dr. Gideon Groenewald knows the Karoo like the back of his hand. For the past 40 years, he has studied its rock formations, groundwater levels and climatic conditions. He says the drought is a direct result of climate change, with the next wet cycle only expected in 2 years' time.
If I look at history, the worst drought we had in our memory is 1820, when it was a little bit less dry than we have at the moment. But if things go as it's going now, it seems we're going to reach a point where we're going to see the worst drought in 1,000 years in South Africa.
The drought has not only affected the farming community in the Karoo, but also close on 40,000 people in Graaff Reinet, where the Nqweba dam, the main water supply to town, has run completely dry. As the gift of the givers convoy rolls into Graaff Reinet, it brings with it much needed relief for a community that's been without water for several weeks. Those most affected are vulnerable people living on the outskirts of town.
We at the moment in Centerville in Graaff Reinet, just outside Graaff Reinet. We are distributing 18,000 liters of water behind me in 25-liter cans. This community has been out of water for months. They're getting drops of water every 2 weeks or so in the taps, but the water that's coming out of there is not drinkable. So they are really suffering. The request from this area has come as one of the most significant areas in Graaff Reinet that is suffering the most with clean drinking water.
At a nearby school, for these children, water could not have come any sooner. The trucks pump thousands of liters of clean drinking water into the school tank.
Die water is 'n groot probleem, want eendag is dit af en eendag is dit aan en dit affekteer ons skool en ons kinders. Baie keer as die water af is, dan moet ons maar die kinders vroeg huis toe stuur 10:00, want die toilette is 'n groot probleem, u weet. As daar nie water is, dan gebruik die kinders baie die toilette en so dis onhygiënies vir die kinders en vir die skool.
Since their arrival, the gift of the giver's presence provided a welcome relief for the people because the municipality is unable to provide for their daily needs.
Ek is baie bly vir die water, nee, want ons kry swaar by die water. Dan is hulle weer af, dan is hulle weer aan. En mens weet nie wat om te doen nie.
Soms wat ons laat weet wanneer die water afgesit word, dan vat dit 2 weke om die water terug te laat kom.
Ons kan nie wasgoed was nie, ons kan nie die skoolkinders voorsien nie, ons kan nie toilet geriewe het nie. Dit is baie teleurstellend met die water in Graaff Reinet.
Thick clouds move over the Karoo, bringing with it the promise of much needed rain. But the rains just won't come. Farmers say it's been like this for the past 3 years.
This is the Sundays River. It is said to be one of the fastest flowing rivers in the Eastern Cape. It is also a major water supply. Without rains in this area, it is now bone dry.
With the rivers having run dry, it's brought about widespread devastation to the Nqweba Dam, the main water supply to town, where thousands of fish lie rotting in the scorching sun.
As Nqweba got emptier, when it reached 30 centimeters in water depth, the salt content of that water increased dramatically. So all your fresh water evaporates and it increases the salt value of the water to the point where the fish then start suffocating.
With the Nqweba Dam unable to supply water to Graaff Reinet, the town is now solely dependent on borehole water, which is unpredictable and barely manages to keep the pipes wet.
We've got 30 boreholes running there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they cannot produce enough water. We've got a shortfall of roughly 1.2 megalitres a day of water for the town. We are managing to keep just the taps wet, but we can't supply a full supply of water.
Some of the water is salty. Because of the high sulfur content, it also has a pungent smell. Gift of the givers have sunk a number of boreholes on school grounds in vulnerable communities. Dr. Gideon Groenewald says they have had to drill deep to find the water.
At the moment, we've completed 7 boreholes in Graaff Reinet, and 6 of them provide enough water to give us about 130,000 litres a day. So that is 10 litres of water for every school child at these schools in Graaff Reinet.
How far can you drill to get drinkable water?
In Graaff Reinet, we found drinkable water now at 164 meters already. So the water table went way down, which is very frightening.
The municipality says without a steady flow of water, they are unable to flush the sewage from people's homes, which poses sanitation problems. What's worse is that when the dam does fill up, they still won't be able to supply water to town because the infrastructure has been completely vandalized.
Vandalism is a major problem in our area. The pumps that pump from the dam now have been switched off due to no water in the dam, and vandals are come in there and they've stripped all the pumps and all the telemetry almost to the bone. If the dam fills up tomorrow, we won't be able to pump for at least 3 months because we'll have to repair all those pumps. Similar situation happens with our sewage pump stations. We put a pump in today, and tomorrow we find the cables have been stolen.
In the midst of despair, the people of Graaff Reinet came together to clean up the Nqweba dam. Young and old, people from all walks of life gathered in their numbers, united in their goal, in an attempt to restore the image of their town as the gem of the Karoo.
The stress levels have been high, the human suffering I think has been quite high, and I think that there is a tension and there's a wanting to see something happen now. There's a frustration with sort of the powers that be and what do we do now? Where do we go from here in terms of making the situation better? The biggest element is really just removing the smell, the dead carcasses, the flies, and pulling the community together to all do it together, hand in hand, yeah.
According to Dr. Groenewald, the next wet cycle in the Karoo is only expected in about 2 years' time. It's only then that the big rains will fall, filling up the rivers and the dam, with the farming sector already on its knees and communities unable to source clean drinking water. It's hard to imagine that things could still get worse.